Hello.
And it seems like it's on. Doesn't mean that that's a good fit for your body or your child's body. Same thing goes for gluten.
How are you?
So for the amazing. I'm just gonna ask everybody to mute themselves as you come in. We'll get started in just a few minutes.
Just right.
Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Christina.
Hi.
We'll be starting in just a few minutes, but in the meantime, do you want to tell us about how everything is going? There's only two of us on so far.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. I think Hunter's skin got really, really good for a little while. And then as soon as it started to get a little cold out, he definitely had a flare. So I think this will be really helpful. But overall, he's doing really good with the juice. But I think we've definitely been having a challenge getting him to drink the bone broth. So we've been trying to focus on that this week, getting him to drink a little bit more.
Okay. How old is he? How old is Hunter?
He's about to turn 2.
Okay. So have you been trying to give it to him like on an empty stomach, kind of between meals?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So, that's optimal and that's great, but not all kids are into that. So another option is to use it to cook with in things that
I do that. Yeah,
Okay.
I've been doing that.
And what about stocks? Bone broths have a stronger taste than things like stocks, like chicken stock, for example.
Okay.
So maybe, it might not be worth trying to force the bone broth. Do you make it yourself?
I've made it myself, and then we have like a local butcher that also makes it too.
Okay, so it might not be worth doing bone broths. A lot of healing modalities that work to aim at restoring the lining of the endothelial lining, the gut lining, really just focus on a lot of stocks. They're easier to digest. They have less histamine for those kids who are histamine sensitive. Stocks also just taste a little bit better, actually a lot better.
Okay.
So kids who are not really it might not be worth the battle is what I'm saying. And so maybe try stocks instead. And it's easier to make in a way because it's a shorter kind of, if you just want to throw like chicken, include the bones and the muscles of like poultry, for example. That's usually the one that kids like the most, is like a chicken stock.
Okay.
Try that, or you could make it soups with it, it's kind of cold season. Great. Yeah, hi everybody that's just joining us. I'm gonna give everyone just a few more minutes to come in, but in the meantime, I'll ask you how everything is going. Christina, are you there? Okay. Does anybody want to mention how everything is going?
Hey there, Jen.
Hi,
I think we've seen some positive changes for Emma. I don't know like what it's down to yet, but like the weather getting less hot has helped, I think, probably too. But she's been able to do more activities that she wants to do, like water play outside, giving her like a proper bath, things like that have really improved lately. So that's been exciting.
Well, that's great to hear. Jen. What changes have you made so far, and how far in the journey did you start to see these changes?
I think so these changes have been like the last few days, like that we've really seen a big change, and we're about halfway through week 2, I guess. We're taking it slow. We're like a month or so into the program, but we're only on the week 2 steps right now.
Okay. Week 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so usually, like just for anyone, I'm gonna change my lighting. Okay, usually, so you're going through 4 weeks. These weeks are in order for a reason. So in week 1, we remove all the things that are in our child's environment that might not be serving them, where you have too much inflammation possibly. It's a lot of hit or miss. Some kids respond really well to a removal of something. It could be something that's internal, like a trigger that they might have had, but it's not an overt allergy that was ever diagnosed, just an inflammatory trigger, something that kind of pushes the body over the edge of inflammation. And that very often could be dairy or gluten or extra sugar, or maybe just having a lot of processed foods. It could be something in the environment that is used as like a soap, or those simple steps. Not so simple, it's probably actually the hardest part. On week 2, we start to replace nutrients. And so when we replace nutrients, it's a lot of them that are anti-inflammatory, and they calm the inflammation. And that's where you see, because we know eczema is not really a skin problem, it's coming from the inside out. So you start to see some progress there. And then weeks 3 and weeks 4 is where the actual healing takes place. So if you're seeing great results now, you could actually just hang out in that week, like week 1 and week 2, just spend more time there. Because sometimes when you introduce new things, like what we're doing in weeks 3 and 4, we're introducing a lot of stocks and broths and ferments that can trigger changes too quickly. So if you're, for Jen or for anyone else that's listening right now that is here, you don't have to speed through the whole thing. It's not necessary. There's really no, like, this could very easily be a 6-month program, is actually what the crux of it. And it could be a 1-month program, it could be a 6-month program, because every child is different, every family is different. So the goal is really not to stress anybody out. The goal, like your child or you or the whole family with restrictions and cooking, and it takes a lot to adjust to, especially for some kids who are a little bit older and they notice a difference when you remove something that they have been used to for so long. So the goal is no stress. Stress is very much directly linked to eczema flares. It's proven time and time again, and we don't really think about that when we think about our younger kids having stressors in their life that might be also contributing to eczema. So so go with your gut is my point. Like, if you don't need to do it in 4 weeks. I'm actually in the middle of redeveloping the program to be longer, so you might start to see some changes inside. It's going to be the same order, but it's going to look a little different in terms of how things are structured. A lot of the bonus material is going to come out of the main modules, and it's actually going to turn into like a 3 to 6 month program, which is what my team and I are working on right now, based on feedback that we've been receiving. So don't be alarmed if you see some things moved around. So I'm really happy to hear, Jen, that everything is going well, and I'm going to answer all of your questions after I do my talk on winterizing your child's skin. So I'm just gonna get to it. Let me make sure we're recording for those of you who couldn't watch it live. And if you are not on mute, please mute yourselves. I really appreciate it. So I know that it's only October, but winter is fast approaching. And as 2 of you out of like 6 people that were on already said, it's just getting cold, eczema flares are coming. Why is this happening? And I already knew this was going to happen. This was pre-planned. And that's why we're doing like a whole entire talk and education on how to approach it. So it's a preventative way to approach winter season. We're going to be looking at it from a holistic viewpoint. So there are a lot of things that are kind of recommended in conventional medicine that is not necessarily a holistic mindset and a holistic long-term way to prevent something. So a conventional approach to winterizing your child's skin would be to, for example, I saw a study recently written and studied that babies who were given ointments, or maybe like even Vaseline, I think that they studied for, the study was for Vaseline from birth, had a lower risk for developing eczema when they had a risk for developing it based on siblings and family history and other risk factors. they had a lower risk for developing eczema, but at 24 months of age, it kind of evened out. And I don't consider that to be a preventative and healthy approach, because skin has its own negative feedback cycle. And so we want our kids to not rely on moisturizers, right? This is the goal. This is why we're here. We don't want to think about moisturizers, steroid creams, lotions, potions. We don't want to think about any of that in, let's say, 6 months or maybe a year. We don't want to think about what is the best cream in some time. Healthy skin is able to create its own natural moisture barrier. And I repeated that many, many times, but sometimes we do need to use these preventatively, because if we're here, the skin barrier is not strong. And so during the winter months, the main causes of eczema, like why this is winter so hard and so many kids with eczema, not all kids, but so many, is because the transdermal water loss, which basically means that the water inside your child's body is being lost from the inside of the body to the outside of the body. It's basically dehydration of the skin, and because of a compromised skin barrier from lack of skin lipids. So wintertime is especially drying and irritating to eczema-prone skin, because we have a combination of the outdoor humidity levels fall. So it's not just the cold, but it's also humidity that starts to drop. We have things like indoor heating in a lot of places, not everywhere. You know, I know you're all coming from different parts of the world, but in general, indoor heating starts to rev up. We start to use different forms of heating that can also, you know, dry out skin because it's very dry, and because the outdoor air is becoming colder. And so even if you live in like California or Florida, the weather does change. And so you have these changes happening, and our kids' skin, our kids who have eczema already have kind of low resiliency on their skin. They're prone to losing a lot of the moisture out of the skin very rapidly. So the holistic approach is a preventative approach. We want to prepare your child's skin barrier ahead of time to prevent moisture loss from the skin. So today I'm going to tell you what those things are that are proven, that are holistic, that work really well. Some of you have already been doing that, and that's great. Others have not. I actually really enjoyed making this lesson for you, because there was just so much to learn always, and there's so many new studies that I'm always looking at from the evidence-based aspect of it, that, you know, and having everything in one place, I think is helpful, because you can start to take the steps now, even though it's not winter time yet, to prepare the skin while still making sure that you're healing from the inside out. So this is not to replace weeks 1, 2, and 3, and 4 of the internal healing process. This is something that's going to prevent acute eczema flares, hopefully. Not all kids develop eczema flares during winter time, and that is because everyone has a different kind of eczema. There's different genetic predispositions. Everyone's skin is different. Everyone has different bacteria constitutions that live in the skin naturally. So we're coming from different places. So some kids actually get a lot worse in the summertime. Some kids get worse in the winter time. So this might not necessarily apply to you, but I think these are really good practices in general. So the first thing we're going to do is to replace lost moisture. One of the best ways to do this is to use a humidifier to replace the moisture into the air to keep skin from drying out and becoming very cracked and itchy. If you don't have a humidifier, and if you don't feel like buying one, you actually don't need to get one at all. You can actually just take bowls of water and put them in each room. Another approach is to take like towels, make sure they're not dripping on the floor, because it's going to kind of like ruin the floor. But you can take bowls, you can take towels, and sorry, I'm just gonna, whoever's, okay, I muted whoever was not muted, sorry. So you can replace moisture this way. Take towels, make them wet, hang them up to dry. The thing with humidifiers, and also with standing bowls filled with water, is that they can breed bacteria very, very easily, especially a humidifier. You have to basically babysit a humidifier like you would a pet, like a fish. You have to clean them properly. I clean my humidifier with vinegar and with baking soda. I don't use any chemicals to clean it. you want to, if you have bowls of water, you want to refill those daily. Humidifiers, the big question is, do you want to use cool mist or warm mist? And the answer really doesn't matter for replacing moisture into your child's skin, but it does matter if you're not that great with cleaning it. And I still recommend being very, very, very careful with it, because if you leave a humidifier not running, so just it kind of maybe stopped and there's a few drops on the bottom, because it's humid, it's going to get moldy and bacteria could disperse into the air. And so I found a good amount of studies that show that there's a lot less risk for dispersing harmful bacteria using a warm mist humidifier compared to a cool mist humidifier, which is interesting because I would think it would be the other way around. So again, if you're like trying to decide if you want to use a cool mist or warm mist or which feature in your humidifier you want to be using, I would suggest using a warm mist because it disperses less bacteria into the air if there are any in that humidifier. And I think that also applies to like molds that might be growing in fungus that might be growing as it would in any standing water. You can use a hygrometer, which is basically a device that measures humidity, just like a thermometer would measure temperature. A hygrometer measures humidity in the air. Sometimes they're sold separately, which they're not expensive. They're like a few dollars on Amazon. Or you could have a humidifier if you're like in the market. I have an ultrasonic one by Homedics, and it has a built-in hygrometer that regulates the humidity in the air, and it turns the humidifier on and off based on the humidity in the air. I think it's worth every penny. I've been using mine for many, many years now. The one that I have is discontinued, but Homedics makes pretty great ultrasonic humidifiers that have a built-in hygrometer. And so that the next question you might be thinking is, do you want, what's the best humidity for the air to be comfortable for your child's skin so it's not losing humidity? And so the number is really between 30 and 50%, but for kids who are really prone to having very bad eczema, dry eczema in the winter months, I would keep it about 50%. It's easier to do, it's a little easier to do in a small room, like a bedroom, while the child sleeps. Another concept to try to think about when you have a child who's very prone to getting worse eczema in the winter time is to regulate temperature. So you kind of, for every child it's different, but you don't want your child to overheat. And that temperature could be, in the 70s, it could be in the high 60s while your child is sleeping, as long as your child is basically not overheated or sweating. Of course, also make sure that your child is really far away from radiators, heating vents, fireplaces, because you don't want to warm the skin. So I know that that cold air is associated with eczema flares in a lot of kids, but having skin that is too hot or sweaty is one of the reasons why a lot of kids get eczema flares in the winter time. So it's that dysregulation of temperature, especially while asleep. If you notice your kids might be very sweaty, in certain ages it's more common. Around age like 1 to 2, kids tend to sweat a lot when they're sleeping. So even though it's cold out and you want to bundle your child up, make sure that they're not overheating, and just keep it cool and keep it moist is the name of this game. Cleaner air is something else to think about as we go into the winter season. There is a lot more, windows are closed, you're heating up your house, and because of that, you could have a lot of dust in the air. Dust mites tend to kind of grow in those kind of environments more. And so air pollution also is very inflammatory. If you have a new home, for example, there are a lot of fumes that are maybe new furniture, new home, a lot of fumes are being evacuated from those newer products. And so in those cases, I would recommend getting an air purifier, particularly those that have a HEPA filter. It's a HEPA filter, even like a double HEPA filter, is the gold standard for purified air effectiveness. It could really be helpful in preventing a lot of common eczema triggers. It's pretty easy to do. The filters can also help get rid of allergens, like maybe mold in the springtime pollen that may exist in your home. I also recommend sleeping with the window cracked open even in the winter time to circulate fresh air. This is a big one. It's made a huge impact in a lot of my patients that I treat at Blossom Pediatrics, is having the window cracked open in all seasons, except if there's a springtime allergy. I would recommend closing it if, during spring, to prevent pollen from entering the house or different kinds of grasses. So in the winter time, try to have your child's bedroom window cracked a little bit open to circulate that fresh air. Let's talk about moisture, the big problem with eczema flares in the winter time. The epidermal barrier, which is the skin barrier, it's the most outer layer of the skin, fails, and that failure in our kids who have eczema is thought to be the driving force between a lot of the inflammatory cascade in eczema. And so controlling moisture is really the fundamental aspect in controlling flares. There are a lot of studies that show that emollients alone have shown to have a significant effect on eczema severity, how bad it is, and quality of life. And there are a lot of studies that show that regular emollient use has demonstrated to have a steroid-sparing benefit, meaning that there are a lot of studies that show that if you start to use a thicker emollient before winter fully kicks in, you might have a lower risk for needing steroids in the winter time. And in conventional medicine, that is the paramount goal in managing eczema or atopic dermatitis. So what does moisture have to do with the itching in the broken skin in atopic dermatitis or eczema? It's a deficiency of I'm going to geek out for just a second, and if you want to completely tune me out, this is completely okay, because it's pure science here. So there are three main parts to why moisturizers are helpful. One is a lot of kids who have eczema have a deficiency of a natural moisturizing factor on their skin. Another reason is a deficiency of ceramides. And the third is a deficiency of aquaporin water channels, which is like basically a channel in your child's skin that allows the moisture to come in and out properly. So what can you actually do about it? Well, you could switch to an oil-based moisturizer and moisturize frequently. The more oil a moisturizer contains, the more effectively it protects against moisture loss. I would avoid things like gels or lotions because they have less oil. If your child's skin is dry, consider using something like an ointment, which holds more water in the skin and reduces the risk of irritation on the skin. Ointments are also great because they stay on the skin longer than creams and gels. They're beneficial when humidity is low, they're thicker. And I would just avoid them in places that tend to get very hot and sweaty, like armpits, maybe, I don't know, groin, because that could actually lead to bacterial infections when there's no there's not enough breathing of the skin through that ointment. So question is, what's the best wintertime emollient to use? A lot of farmers, this is not the best, but this is what's considered best in the conventional medicine setting. Pharmaceutical companies make a whole bunch of prescription barrier repair creams. They usually have ingredients like ceramides, hyaluronic acids, licorice extracts, dimethicone, lots of other chemicals. I want you to read your ingredients, okay? Many over-the-counter eczema-safe remedies are laden with irritating chemicals that in theory might be very beneficial to retaining moisture, but our kids have eczema and they're very sensitive a lot of times to chemicals, and chemicals on their skin ultimately absorb into their body, which causes more inflammation, which causes worse eczema, which causes your child to need to rely on these pharmaceutical emollients more and more and more. So I want you to think about always reading your labels. The Environmental Working Group Skin Deep database is a must to refer to when you're making choices about what products to get, whether it's the products that you use for moisturizers or cleaning products, or maybe even sunscreen. I refer to the environmental working group's databases. Skin Deep database will acknowledge all the moisturizers, for example. My favorite kinds of emollients are things like the things that you can eat. Okay, so tallow is one of my favorites. It has its pros, it has its cons. You've heard me speaking about tallow plenty. It's made from, it's beef fat usually. It's fat from an animal's tallow. It's an intense moisturizer, and it really assists in retaining the skin's natural moisture. It replenishes the building blocks of skin. It's full of natural fats and minerals that are naturally found. It doesn't have to be added in a chemical form. It literally, tallow feeds your skin to make it soft and supple. It has naturally abundant vitamins like vitamins A, D, E, and K, which are fat soluble, which literally bring vitamins into your child's skin naturally. They're not synthetic vitamins. When looking for tallow, don't use tallow that is fractionated, meaning that each of the ingredients in that tallow is in their whole form. It's really important to use high quality tallow. It's not so hard to find. Try to find 100% grass-fed tallow if you want it to be most nutritious for your child's skin. You can whip it easily. It's pretty smooth. You can apply it. It's great because it doesn't have any petroleum-based ingredients. It's free from artificial colors. You want to find a tallow that doesn't have any fragrances at all. It doesn't have any chemicals added to it. It's free from GMOs. And also consider getting tallow that is sustainably sourced and handmade. Like, smaller companies do a great job doing that. I like the company I like Fatworks tallow actually a lot. And Toops Unscented Tallow Balm is another great one. But Toops is a balm that is grass-fed tallow, 100% grass-fed tallow. It's spelled Toups, and I'll actually put everything inside the program where you could click and link and find everything that I talk about. But it's mixed with organic olive oil, so consider that it's not like just tallow in the Toops product. There are a lot of companies that use tallow to make balms, but they also use fragrances in it to make it more appealing. I do not recommend using any fragrances in really for kids who like essential oil fragrances, rather, for kids who have eczema. There are some that are kind of like, there is a brand that I'm going to say is a great balm. It does have a natural fragrance, but a lot of times fragrances that are added to products are not very well vetted, and they're artificial and synthetic, and so we don't want to do that. If you're not in the mood to have your child's clothes stain with tallow, because it will stain, it's very greasy, it's animal fat, not everyone wants it in their lives. Another really incredible balm that I think would be great as basically an ointment for the winter time is by a company called Kiss Kiss Goodnight. They have a product called Peace of Mind ointment. It's a very versatile healing balm. It provides long-lasting moisture. I've used it, I've tried it, I've used it on a lot of kids in my practice for recommending it. The woman that created this brand is a chemist. This is one of the cleanest, most microbiome-friendly products that I have yet to find. It is very clean. It's an incredible, I love everything that they make. I'm not like, there's no affiliate link here. I think that this is just a very high quality product. Their balm is incredible. It uses things like kupaku. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, and I'm sorry if I'm not, but it's kupachu butter. It uses different kinds of oils to create a protective skin barrier so the skin can retain water and renew itself. It doesn't have things like zinc oxide, which could be very irritating. So you could actually use it as a diaper rash cream as well without zinc oxide, which is very irritating to a lot of kids who have eczema. And you could use it all over the body. It has a very natural vanilla scent, and it's not made from animal products. So I'm a big fan of this ointment. It's by Kiss Kiss Goodnight, and that's the one that I would say is great. Now, I've seen a lot of studies that also point to sunflower seed oil being very anti-inflammatory and having great studies that show that it restores the barrier of the skin. It has a major lipid that might be lost for a lot of kids who have eczema on their skin, linoleic acid. And so when you restore that, that could actually decrease inflammation. It has a lot of protective kind of, I saw somebody read this study. There was a study that showed that it reduced because, so a lot of kids with eczema have an overgrowth of staph bacteria in their skin. And so using sunflower seed oils in these studies showed that compared to like a Vaseline like Aquaphor, it reduced infant mortality rates of sepsis from a staph by about 30% compared to like Aquaphor. So basically it's antibacterial. But here's my problem with this. I cannot find a sunflower seed oil that is clean, that is non-GMO, that is safe for the skin. So stay tuned, because I'm looking for a really great product that I can recommend. But even though there's like these great studies, sunflower seed oil is very much mixed oil. It's a seed oil. It could be very inflammatory when it's not high quality, and I can't find a great one. Stay tuned when I do. And if you heard of great one, please let me know. Another consideration is what you do at bath time. I think that it would be prudent to consider how you're managing baths for kids who have eczema coming into the winter time. So there's no one right way to do this. You will ask 50 different holistic or conventional pediatricians or providers what would be the best approach to bath time. Do you need to bathe your child every day? Do your child need a bath or a shower? How long? In general, I would say, there's no one right way. Everyone's skin barrier is different. Everyone can manage different things in the wintertime, but unanimously, you will hear us providers say that you want to use, you don't want to use hot water. You want to use cooler water if possible. Consider shortening showers or baths to maybe 5 minutes, maybe less than what you usually do. For everyone is different, but a preventative measure is basically try to cool down the temperature, decrease the amount of time in the water. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to close my window because it's really loud outside. 1 second, please, everybody. Sorry about that. Okay, so consider also applying a moisturizer within about 3 minutes after bathing, because the pores are open and it's going to absorb better into the skin. Consider also using wet wraps, or another word for that is occlusives, if your child's skin is feeling especially dry. This technique can really help very, very dry skin absorb moisture or medicines that your child is being prescribed. So usually the order of application is first do a shorter bath, make sure the water is not hot, maybe a shower. And then whatever you put in the bath, rinse it off. So if you're using things like detox baths, like Epsom salt or Dead Sea salts or bentonite clay or apple cider vinegar or baking soda or oatmeal, which I'll talk to you about in just a second, you want to rinse whatever that is off. You want to rinse everything off. Apply in the following order. You want to apply first the if there's a prescription steroid or some kind of other prescription immunomodulator cream, apply that first, then apply moisturizer, and then you can apply a wet wrap if skin is especially dry. Wet wraps really take moisture to another level. So let me just make sure I have everything. Yeah, so you could leave wet wraps on overnight. You could leave it on for a few hours, and it generally means that you apply first a damp layer, like a damp cloth or gauze to the area that's very dry, and then you put a dry layer over it, and then you could kind of heat things up just a little bit with like maybe a blanket. not so that your child is sweating, but the warmth keeps the pores open and allows all the moisture to come back into the epidermal barrier. The occlusive moisturization is what we call it when we put a moisturizer and then we put the wet wraps and the dry layer on top of that. That occlusive moisturization increases the water content in the skin and improves the epidermal barrier. Let's see. That physical barrier of the wrap, by the way, can also help reduce the trauma, the scratching, the itching, the scratches associated with kids who are like scratching a lot. There are a lot of studies that show that wet wraps, like there was recently 24 publications that were done like just this year on wet wrap therapy, which is great because it's pretty holistic. And they note that despite variation in the methods that were used on the wet wrap technique, because everyone will kind of, you do it a little bit differently, this practice of wet wrapping is very effective for moderate to severe eczema in the short term. And then the review concluded that the use of topical steroids as a component on wet wraps was more effective than just using moisturizers. So all of it works together. So if you're using a steroid, apply that first, then a moisturizer, then the wet wrap. Let's see, the worst thing that can happen is two things actually. Discomfort, you might not be comfortable, like because your child might be itchy underneath there. And the second point is occlusion, or the wet wraps does increase the density of bacteria on the skin, and that can increase the risk of basically folliculitis or infections on the skin, like abscesses, for example. But really that only happens with kids who have a current or recent history of skin infections. So if your child has a recent or current or currently has staph infections or abscesses, history of MRSA, for example, I wouldn't use wet wraps on the skin. What can you put in the winter time into your child's bath? If there is, like, you know, if there's a bathtub involved, colloid oatmeal. By the way, colloid just means that the oatmeal has been processed into tiny particles, which are easier for the skin to absorb and to use as moisture. You can buy one. You could buy one that kind of has been so finely milled that the grains of oats are nanoparticles. They grind it, like if you purchase a colloid oatmeal, first they grind it into nanoparticles, then they're cooked and they're dried, and then they're processed. And so, but you have to make sure that it's not like a vino because of the different types of preservatives that are in vino products that just take that really healing oat properties and then they turn it into something toxic. So you have to kind of risk benefit it. I like oatmeal, colloid oatmeal baths because they do decrease inflammation for a lot of kids. They also contain a lot of phenols, which are anti-inflammatory. It's kind of a really great holistic combo product. Please don't use it if your child is allergic to oats. You can make one yourself. You could just basically take organic steel cut or rolled oats. Don't use instant oats. That's not a great option for this recipe because it's very processed and has a lot of unhealthy chemicals and ingredients when it's a quick or instant oats. Instead, get like a steel cut oats, rolled oats, grinded and like a coffee grinder. You could do like 1 cup of organic rolled oats. You can take a half a cup of baking soda. You can put them together. I do not recommend adding essential oils to things because it can be very irritating. I know that this is very debatable. I know that essential oils are healing to many families. If you want to try it, go ahead. I know that it's having a very popular moment, but in order for an essential oil to work properly, it can't be irritating to your child's sensitive skin. So that's why I say just maybe stay away from it. If you grind the oats too finely, it could turn into a paste. So instead of it clogging up your bathtub, you could throw them into like a small cloth drawstring bag or cut the leg of like a pair of tights and make like a tea bag and you use that as a soak so it doesn't clog anything up. Or you can buy a pre-made, really high quality, clean product like the Eczema Conqueror oatmeal bath, which is super expensive. So maybe just make it yourself. Another question about baths is, do you want to do hard water or soft water? And this is actually pretty confusing because we have known in the realm of holistic medicine that places like the Dead Sea in Israel, which is very hard water because it's so mineral rich, has been attracting people to go there for their healing properties for many different ailments, including eczema. These waters like that are very hard, that are found naturally, they're so rich in minerals, they promote skin healing, they're anti-inflammatory, but studies have shown time and time again that that only works in combination with sun exposure. So all of those healing properties in hard water, natural hard water, only work to be anti-inflammatory if it's combined with natural sunshine exposure. So they sell, things like Dead Sea salts. I still, although it's winter time, I still recommend you do these baths, but also get outside. It doesn't have to be at the same time. In general, you just need to have sun exposure for chemical reactions to happen properly on the body. Another few studies, actually, this one is a big one, a large randomized trial of 336 kids found no difference in the severity of eczema when a water softener was used in a water system of a home versus hard water. So the point is, overall, it appears that mineral baths alone may not be sufficient to improve eczema, but the beneficial effects of hard water are substantially augmented when light therapy or phototherapy is used at the same time. So, basically, mixed reviews on hard or soft water. If you're not seeing the results that you are happy with, try to soften the water by removing the hardness of it. You could use a faucet filter, like inside a bath. Berkey used to make one, Aquasana makes one, which is really great. There are a lot of water softeners that don't have to be connected to the whole house. I also like filters on showers because you can remove a lot of chemicals that are used to clean the water, like chlorine or fluoride, that are very irritating to a lot of kids as well. Let's see. Okay, don't forget, even though it's winter time, you do need to have your kids go outside. How your child dresses outside is of utmost importance. It is highly recommended to dress your child in loose fitting layers so you could easily remove them if your child gets too hot, to prevent overheating. Again, overheating is a big problem during the winter time. So it's too cold or too hot. The most common trigger for this itch and scratch cycle that our kids go through in the wintertime is actually sweating and overheating, not necessarily the cold. So also consider dressing for the weather. Cover your child's skin as much as possible without overheating them. You want to protect the hands from the cold air and low humidity by wearing gloves. If your child is using gloves that are made from a material that's irritating their skin, you could even apply like a cotton glove underneath it. Hands are a big deal when it comes to wintertime skin rashes, so consider that. If your child gets wet, if they're sweaty, get rid of those wet clothing as soon as possible. Get rid of the wet shoes as soon as possible, because the wetness, the warmth can really irritate the skin and cause flare-ups. Fabric is important. What is your child wearing? You want to use natural, breathable fabrics, like 100% cotton is great. Things like wool and synthetic fibers like acrylic and polyester can irritate skin. Let's see. Also consider what your child is sleeping on. cotton sheets are great. About 250 thread count is actually optimal. I know that the higher the thread count of a cotton sheet or, you know, pillowcase or blanket means that it's better, but the higher thread counts don't allow for the air to circulate as well as it could, and that could create overheating. I also like bamboo sheets because they're natural and very soft. So that can make a difference. Try to avoid polyester blends that can be very, very irritating, and it's such an easy fix to make. Something else to consider is staying away from fragrances, because those are very irritating as well. I feel like winter is really associated with like lighting candles, which can be very irritating, even if it's like a natural soy candle. The fragrances can be irritating, and that irritation can show up on skin as eczema flares. So stay away from fragrances, natural fragrances, burning them into the air. Of course, stay away from preservatives, essential oils being, actually, I don't recommend putting essential oils in diffusers unless you're like sure that your child is not reacting to it. Because I know they smell great, and I know that we have a whole movement that essential oils are great and wonderful, and if you're happy with, you know, using it, then go ahead and use it. But I just want to say that like even diffusing into the air, not applying it directly onto the skin, essential oils, even high quality ones, essential oils can be very irritating. It's a sneaky irritant. You might not even know that that's why your child is having eczema flares. It might make it worse. It might throw your child over the edge of eczema flares. Supplements. I don't speak often about supplements because I want you to consider making sure that your child is fed all their nutrients and they absorb it properly. But there are some supplements that are important in the wintertime, especially vitamin D. The benefits of vitamin D in eczema on paper remain uncertain, but there are several smaller studies that show that kids with the low vitamin D levels not only have a compromised immune response, but their eczema flares tend to be worse. I'm a big fan of making sure that vitamin D levels are, you know, this is one of the few supplements that I'll recommend. Of all the supplements, of all the herbs, of all of them, vitamin D is one of the main ones. You don't really know how much vitamin D is in your child's system, naturally formed on their skin from sunshine. If you're in the Northeast like I am, I'm in New York and New Jersey, there's a lot less chance that there's enough sunlight once your child like gets out of school to create natural vitamin D. I do supplement my family with vitamin D. It's one of the few supplements that I use. It has helped a lot of my patients at Blossom Pediatrics overcome like, you know, it's not going to make or break anything, but this might be the last small kind of step that is needed to send your child into recovery and healing. So vitamin D supplement is great. I also think fish oil is a great one. Of course, having natural fish oil is optimal, but adding something like a fish oil supplement, I like Nordic Naturals as a fish oil supplement through the winter time can also help heal skin. And finally, we can't forget that with less and less sunlight exposure, having days that are shorter and shorter and shorter everywhere, winter blues happen in adults, right? Like how many of you have felt that you're, you know, kind of going inward, things are a little bit slower, calmer, and that could really be associated with increased stress in a lot of adults, maybe teenagers. We don't really think about that affecting our little ones. But eczema on top of that, you know, wintertime can really take a toll on mental health, even for our kids. So want to kind of think about supporting our child's nervous system. There is a really great guided, I can't even say it's a meditation, it's more like something you can listen to with your child. It's about 10 minutes long. It's a yoga nidra meditation. I am actually getting certified to become a yoga nidra practitioner, and so I've scoured for the best one that I could recommend. It's something that you can try before your child falls asleep. It's like a sleepy time meditation for kids. I'll actually link that inside the program, but yoga nidra for kids or adults is a very deeply nourishing practice. it soothes the nervous system, it enhances the mind-body connection, it eases stress, it creates calm. And so what yoga nidra does is basically relaxes the body. It kind of can rotate awareness around it. It could help kids manage their feelings about itching, scratching. It creates awareness of breath. You know, kids could really drop into their bodies a little bit better in a more comfortable way when they listen to this 10-minute yoga nidra meditation. I think that's really nice for adults too. If you want to ask me what my favorites are, please just reach out. You could fall asleep to it easily, that you don't have to stay awake. I think this is just a really nice kind of family thing to do before bed. And it's free. It's on an app called Insight Timer. So I'll actually put this whole list of what to do inside the Eczema Rescue digital program, and you'll be able to see all the actual recommendations. I know that there's a lot of questions inside the group. There's great questions. Let's see. Jennifer asked, what emollient moisturizer would you recommend for winter? Yes, so Jennifer, I like tallow, and I like Kiss Kiss Goodnight ointment. There are a lot of others. I actually have a whole list of products that I love in general that are very clean. Inside Dr. Gluzman's favorites, it's like a whole list of really great products that you can look at and reference. I also like Yoro Naturals Manuka Honey ointments. That's a really good one too. You're not gonna, if there was one ointment that I thought was like amazing for everybody, I would recommend it, but everyone responds a little bit differently to some of these favorites. So if you're not seeing the results that you like, or if you're noticing irritation on your child's skin after you use it, please don't use it anymore. Use something else. Irritation can happen. It could get a little, it shouldn't be getting worse with an ointment is my point. Let's see. Vamshi Kumar asked, an alternative emollient for tallows. We don't eat beef. The Kiss Kiss Goodnight one. Do you, Victoria asked, do you approve Habitat? So it's a rating of 1 on the environmental working group database. It is very helpful to a lot of kids. I think it's, you know, one of the cleaner ones. It helps a lot of kids. So if you don't have any, if you have it at home and you like it, continue to use it. If you don't have anything at home and you're looking for a heavier ointment, maybe that's like not my favorite anymore, because I found the cleaner version, which is Kiss Kiss Goodnight. Jennifer asked the best question, any brand of vitamin D supplement? Yes, so there's 2 brands. So the one that I use in my home is called Apex. It's a drop. It's very concentrated. Hold on, I'm just gonna, it's called Apex Vitamin D with K. It's very concentrated. It's not appropriate for little kids. It's like an adult dose. So if your child is older, you can use, it's an adult dose. So for adults or for teenagers, anyone that's really over 40 kilograms, you can use the Apex one. 40 kilograms is when you start to use adult dosing for things. I am not a big fan of taking supplements every day. I take it once a week. This is how my holistic functional practitioner told me to take it. And I monitor my levels very carefully, because it is one of the most important things that I can do to make sure that my immune system is really, really strong, is to keep my vitamin D levels very high. I mean, I know because I used to get sick a lot, and because I work in a hospital setting often with the sickest kids, and I don't want to be sick. And so ever since like that one last step, vitamin D levels being not only sufficient, but on the higher side, like close to the 70s as a level, everything has changed. And the same for my daughter with her eczema and a lot of my patients. It's not going to make it's not going to heal by itself. You still need to do those steps, but vitamin D can help. I like Mary Ruth's vitamin D drops for kids, for little kids. So that's the brand. Let's see. Vamshi asked, I'm giving D his junior and stop Zyrtec, and my daughter is wheezing and having eczema flares when I stop the steroid. Okay, I'm giving D his junior and stop Zyrtec, and my daughter is wheezing. and having eczema flares when I stopped the steroid.
Actually, I'm asking two questions
Oh,
together.
wait, can you repeat that?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what I was saying is like, remember you said like when the allergy season starts 1 month before you start giving DHIS Junior. So I started giving a DHIS Junior. So it's been a month. So then I stopped giving Zyrtec. And the moment I stopped giving her Zyrtec, again, she started wheezing and her wheezing increased so much. Now I'm giving her like every 4 hours.
Oh,
And I'm following the everything like giving juice. I'm not giving her bone broth because she has a high histamine level. So I'm giving her, the vegetable stock.
yeah.
And then I'm giving her juices, then probiotics and all these, but I'm really not understanding for her. And the second question is her, like my son, both my son and daughter have eczema. My daughter used to have very less eczema last year, but this year it's a lot. So if I don't keep steroid on a cream, it flares up.
Yeah.
And if I keep steroid, it's nice for 10 days. And then if I stop, it's increasing. I'm not giving her any high histamine foods, like no tomato, pineapple, banana. Like I have a very limited one which I'm giving. So I'm just not understanding where am I going wrong. I'm trying to give everything, doing the meal prep and stuff. So this is where I am. But in my son, I see improvement.
Yeah. She's wheezing, you said?
Yes.
So for the wheezing, you always have to, consider that a conventional approach is very necessary to make sure that she's, like that means like going to see your doctor, right? To make sure that it's not so
Yes.
bad, right? I mean, because this really doesn't replace like one-on-one care. Your
Yes.
pediatrician, your pediatrician is really ultimately the one that knows your child, and conventional medicines may be necessary. I don't know why exactly your daughter is still, you've done all the work, right? You've removed histamine, you've done the supplements, you do all the foods, your daughter's still not there.
I'm giving detox baths and
Yeah.
I'm giving,
How old is she? She's teenage.
she's 7 years.
Oh, 7. Okay. I don't know the missing link. Did I ever mention maybe allergy testing to see if there's a constant trigger that she might be exposed to? Might be helpful. Like if she's getting bombarded with foods that she's allergic to, that may be something to consider.
Okay, because I'm not giving her dairy, no gluten, like all those I've cut.
Kids can have allergies to anything, and that allergy could manifest as eczema very often, not always. So maybe seeing an allergist might be helpful.
Sure. And for my son, I do see a difference, but I'm still keeping steroids. So only thing is like if I stop using steroid but I'm still doing the gut, the bone, like the vegetable stock broth, again, I'm just worried, will it again flare up? Like when is the right time again to introduce dairy or gluten or something? Or should I take time for them? Because
so you don't need to, so you don't need to, I would say there's not one right time to reintroduce dairy or gluten. Sometimes after you do the program and your child is better, you can do a reintroduction of dairy or gluten. Like if everything is fine, you're happy with the results, you introduce dairy and then gluten, you have to do it in a certain order, and then you'll actually see if that was the problem. So make sure you reference there's actually a module called My Child is Better Now What? And it's how to do a reintroduction. And the goal is never to completely eliminate dairy or gluten and then keep it out, about a month minimum is what I would say, as to do a reintroduction. And you'll see right away, was dairy the problem? Was gluten the problem? And if it was, you could wait a few more months, do the program more, and then try again. Because dairy and gluten are not as inflammatory for a child whose gut is very healthy.
Like one last question. Like when do we know the gut has healed? Like so because I want to reintroduce, but it could be many reasons. Like now it's the allergy season, so if he has hives, I'll not know whether it's because of the environment or because of the the dairy or the gluten I have introduced. So it would be difficult for me to gauge like which could be the reason.
So in general, you want to make small changes by themselves. So if your child is sick, if you're traveling, if you're adding something, for little kids, if you're adding other new foods, and you can't do an introduction because you need to isolate that one change. So
Yeah.
kind of having things as stable. The best way to do it is if you could have that as the only change, is reintroduction. I wouldn't like take out steroid creams and then do the reintroduction in the same week, for example.
Okay.
You kind of have to pick one or the other.
Okay.
I'd probably say keep the steroids and do the reintroduction.
Okay.
And wait like a little time between the two. And then the second question you asked is a really great question that doesn't have an answer, is when do you know your child's gut has healed? So sometimes that will look differently for every child. This is why I asked you in the beginning. Remember when you just started, Ramshi, and for those of you who are just getting started, I asked you to take the soft sign questionnaire in the beginning of the program, and if you didn't, you could like go into it now. There's a new version. It looks really cool. You can fill it in and print it out, check it out. So that soft sign questionnaire looks at all the different parts of your child's body that are all associated with gut health. And so take it in the beginning of the program, and then you take it in a month, maybe in 6 months, right? And then you can use that assessment to see if your child is actually better. How are they better? For some kids who've had gut issues, whose microbiome was disturbed, who were not digesting properly, who you obviously see digestive issues. There could have been a history of bloating and constipation and reflux and belly pains on and off, right? Diarrhea, maybe they're just, you could see obviously like they're pooping well suddenly. That's a really common one when you do a protocol like this, is like I would say like probably 80% of kids very quickly will start to poop properly. That is a great sign that you're doing the right program, is that you'll see that, or maybe you won't even notice, but when you do that soft sign questionnaire, you'll notice that things are different in different ways. So we're not just isolating like, let's heal eczema here. We're looking at the root cause, which is very often gut health, and that can look like an effect on the brain gut connection. Maybe they're doing better in school. Maybe they're not as reactive. Maybe they're not having as many colds. Maybe they're not snoring.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like my daughter is at home, she wheezes. She goes to school, nothing happens. I'm like, I'm having an air purifier, the plants I'm keeping.
Have you looked at mold in your home possibly?
Mm-hmm.
If she goes to school and she's better, consider having someone check for mold in your home. That's a really common reason why kids wheeze at home. So the answer is there's not one point where you can go, oh, that's it, I've healed my kid's gut. We do have an ability to do functional medicine tests for kids, and there's a brand called Tiny Health that you could actually bypass. They're pretty good. It's the first company that I'm recommending direct to consumer. They have pretty good evidence. They're good for kids. You could go to a functional medicine doctor and have your child's gut tested, or you could just do it clinically and take a look at what's actually going on. What are the symptoms of your child? Are they getting better? Okay, so
thank you so much.
Jen asked, for fish oil, is cod liver oil a good thing to use? We have Rosita brand. Jen, Rosita brand cod liver oil is my favorite fish oil. It's not delicious for a lot of kids. So sometimes you have to bite the bullet and go with Nordic Naturals gummies for fish oil.
My kids don't mind it somehow. I don't know.
That's perfect. So my favorite is is Rosita for cod liver oil. If your kids don't mind it, that's wonderful. The whole family can use it. It's great. That's my favorite. I used to recommend fermented cod liver oil, but it's not as there's just so many mixed studies on whether it's rancid or not that I would say might not be worth the risk for having rancid oils, which are very inflammatory. Actually, Rosita is a great one. Cod liver oil is a great fish oil.
How often would you do it?
Daily, once a day, and it doesn't really matter what time, to be honest. The vitamin A and D levels in a cod liver oil are the perfect ratio for the body to absorb it naturally. So it's actually even better than like a synthetic vitamin D supplement in many ways, because without vitamin A, I know you hear about K2, but you need the right ratio of A and D to be absorbed properly. So those are the two supplements for winter time that I would say, you know, whatever your child is on, just maybe add on that a fish oil and a vitamin D supplement. Jackie asked, did I answer your question, Jen? Okay, great.
I wanted to ask you that you so you said, because I've been giving Rosita for a while, but she's not on vitamin D because I saw that it has vitamin D. Should I give her a separate vitamin D? Oh, I should.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned that because I noticed like when we go out like on the sun all day and stuff, like she has like the best sleep. And when we don't, she doesn't. So I'm like, damn, is it that she's deficient or like needs more vitamin D? So Rosita doesn't have enough for.
Yeah, Rosita is not enough. It you know, it restores the lipids. It has DHA, EPA. It has the different oils, but it also has. It's not enough by itself to combat like wintertime. By the way, how old is she?
She's 14 months now.
Yeah. Did she have her blood work yet? Like for her regular pediatric checkup?
No, I mean they've done like the iron and the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the reason is because if your child is going for regular blood work, like routine regular blood work, it might not be worth going just to get a vitamin D level, but you could ask your child's doctors to add on vitamin D test to see what the level is. So your child's doctor can give you the dose that's appropriate. So like sometimes, you know, if you have a level, you can see if something is deficient or not, and then you could do like one big dose to boost up the level quickly, and then kind of work with dosing to make it more specific for your child.
So it doesn't have to be like an everyday thing. That's what you're saying.
I do it once a week and it works really well for me. Like that's another way to dose it is once a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question I had. So well, really quick, I know you've mentioned like apple cider vinegar, like in water, a tiny bit. Do you recommend it this little or no?
You can, I mean, a few drops is really all you need.
Okay, because I noticed, so she did have low iron and she's like a pound underweight. She was born early, like 36 weeks. And but I don't know, is that low iron common with eczema? Like, is it like more of a like
So
that her not absorbing nutrients or like?
Is it her hemoglobin that was low or her iron?
Okay, so it was that I mean iron, what they said, but then they are sending me, which I go this week, to get a more like broader test.
So right. So they did a screening test. There was probably low hemoglobin. And they're trying to figure out why is it low based on the second blood test, because there's like 50 different reasons why iron could be low. It might be absorption, it might be not enough of some nutrients. So definitely get that test done, because those results will help your pediatrician know which direction to go. Most likely, maybe it's iron deficiency, but we just want to double check. There are hereditary factors, so that's going to tell them exactly why. And let me know. I mean, you know, if you want to.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because I know you told me that supplementing with iron is not the best, right?
It's not the best unless you really need to, because it's very constipating.
Because it's very constipating.
Constipating, yeah.
And that already affects.
So don't just like start supplementing without knowing why your child's hemoglobin is on the lower side.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Maybe.
Hey, let me ask. Let's see. Jackie asked, do you have a facial wash and facial moisturizer you would recommend for my 11-year-old? She doesn't get eczema on her face, but the rest of her skin is so sensitive. Yes, I do. Okay, Jackie. So for an 11-year-old, my recommendation for a facial wash is actually water. Just water. Really, you don't. I don't think it's necessary for an 11-year-old to strip the skin of natural protective moisture. So that's my recommendation for facial wash. Really, for a moisturizer, it's called Leilani. It's a very small brand. It's made of all oils. Let me just make sure I get the right product here for you. So basically oil based. You could actually wash face with oil too, That's like, you know, if you need to like do that, then that's the way I would say to go, is using oil to cleanse the skin and using oil to hydrate the skin. And the brand is called Leilani, Leahlani. And the name of the product, it's one second. It's called Siren Serum. That's what I would recommend. So let me just respond here. Hold on. Jackie Arnold, Leilani, Siren. Okay, that's my recommendation. That's my favorite. I can't find anything I love more for a facial moisturizer. Jennifer asked, okay, this is out of topic. That's okay, Jennifer. I wanted to ask, I gave my little one chicken broth yesterday afternoon once. I noticed his cheeks turned red and itchiness at night. Should I be concerned? I didn't give it to him after a noticeable redness on the cheeks. So Jennifer, is it a baby that you have? Jennifer, are you there? Like, can you answer? Or no? So okay, if you can't answer, that's okay. If it's a newborn, there are other ingredients probably in, like if it's a a baby, there might be other ingredients in that chicken broth that your child might be responding to. Did you put garlic, an onion? Is that new for your baby? If you used Brodo, oh yeah, 6 months old Brodo. Brodo has a lot of different ingredients. So instead, just go back to let things calm down, because Brodo has onions, a lot of prebiotics, onions and garlic, and that might have been too much for a 6-month-old. So instead, maybe just make your own chicken broth at home, not a bone broth, but a chicken stock rather at home, and just use chicken with water and see if there's a reaction to just that ingredient. And if there isn't, then maybe do chicken and a little bit of onion in there, and then on and on and on in the broth, not the actual food product. So if you're seeing reactions just from the chicken, give it a few weeks and then try again. Kids that age can have sensitivities to really anything that is new to them. But I would say, try again in a little bit once things calm down on the skin. What other questions do you all have?
I actually have a question that's pretty similar to that one, so I'll go if that's okay.
Yeah.
So with my little guy, I think you saw on my post, he just, no matter what, he has good nights where he only wakes up like a couple times, and then other nights where he's like tossing and turning, and I feel like he has gas or something, plus the itching with the eczema. And our pediatrician said to use, irritability and sleepless nights to know if he's responding poorly to a food. But since that's kind of like, it feels like sporadic no matter what, I'm kind of not giving him a lot of food, and I'm kind of getting to the point where, we're at a year now and he needs to eat something. So do you have any suggestions in our sort of unique situation?
Has he been growing well?
He's at the bottom of the chart. He's like in the first percentile for weight. His height isn't, he's always been pretty small since birth.
Okay.
He's following his own curve, so they haven't like said that he's failure to thrive, but he's a tiny guy. Yeah.
So he's always been following his curve, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good. So I would say, so you're limiting the amount of foods that you're giving him because of the digestive issues that are happening, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so consider going to a gastroenterologist, because he might have, I don't know if they've ever tested him for something like a milk protein allergy, which is an allergy to like milk proteins. It could be reflux. So consider taking him to a gastroenterologist to make sure that there's nothing like that going on. At the same time, working on optimizing gut health, a lot, stocks and broth if possible, ferment if you can. If that's not possible, consider adding in something like a probiotic. I don't know if your kid was on it yet. Have you been using probiotics? Oh, I muted you by accident. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, actually we have been to a gastro and he has reflux. But she's kind of stuck, you know. She's pretty open to holistic stuff. She is just now learning. So she said if I learn from like you to tell her what we're doing kind of thing. But yeah, he does have reflux. It's just it's getting better, but at some point he's got to be able to eat something. I just don't know what to feed him, you know. So
okay, so start with things that are animal product based is what you feed them.
okay.
Like if you're gonna go in any direction, it would be beef, chicken, fish, lots of animal proteins. It's the most nutrient dense for a growing child. Make sure there's lots of those natural fats in there.
Okay.
Okay. Juicing would be probably really good because it's really easy to digest.
Okay.
Consider starting the morning off with warm water and a little bit of apple cider vinegar, like a few drops, because that will help open up all the blood vessels to get them ready for digestion. But also it creates an environment in the stomach that is a more conducive pH for digestion. That's another one. I would say like focus on that and kind of go slow. Also maybe look into, I'm not saying do this protocol specifically, but you can get a lot of takeaways by look at the book called Gut and Psychology Syndrome by Dr. Natasha McBride. Okay, that's what I think and I'm not saying do that. They use a lot of dairy. I'm not recommending that necessarily for healing. You could probably get a lot of insight into how to heal the gut by doing that if you want, or you could just focus on like weeks 3 and 4 of this program. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, what other questions do we have?
Hi, I wanted to ask, I had mentioned at the beginning, we're in New York, and so I had said like with the change in like weather starting to get a little cooler, I noticed
Not today though. Not today.
Yeah, not today. But I noticed that this time the eczema looks a little bit different. It looks more round. And I actually at first thought maybe it was ringworm. It kind of has like that similar appearance. So I started looking, and I guess there is a type of eczema that looks more rounded as opposed to just kind of splotchy. Is that normal that it would kind of change? Like he always had, it looked like redness. This looks totally different this time.
It's very common for it to change.
Okay.
It's not abnormal for it to change. If it's changing, you know, always check with your doctors to actually give you a diagnosis, because I can't do that.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, you know, but it's not uncommon for it to change because the different, you know, kids are growing, they're changing, different bacteria naturally live on skin, different viruses live on skin, fungus lives on skin. So it doesn't mean that things are getting worse if it's changing.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure of, because it was better for a while and then now all of a sudden it's starting to show up a lot more.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the other thing I just quickly wanted to ask, have you looked at the Ever Eden baby oil? Because the main ingredient is the sunflower seed.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. They have all ones on EWG. They're actually EWG verified. Okay. I can send it to you, but we started using it. I use it with like something thicker also, but it's pretty good. And they really test all their ingredients. It's made by a dermatologist for babies. So
thank you. I just wrote it down. Ever Eden, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The whole line is really good. So.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. This is great. I'm going to look at it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, great. Let's see. What other questions do you have, or want to talk to me about anything? Tell me how you're doing.
So I have another question. I wanted to ask, so how do we really know the difference like between an allergen and a sensitivity? For example, like my daughter had, we tried lentil, like a red lentil pasta, and she had it like 3 times. We weren't sure if she was sensitive to it at first, because the next day she would wake up with like an eczema flare, like small, but we were like, maybe it could be something else, like, you know, we weren't sure. And then just like last week I gave it to her after not giving it to her for 2 weeks, and she literally right away turned red, started really itchy, her neck and her face got red. Does that mean that's an allergy?
So we don't, there's, there's no really fat line between an allergy or sensitivity, to be honest. Usually an allergy is something that is diagnosed, that you could see on like through blood testing that look for allergies, or you can see through skin prick testing is an allergy, or you could see clinically, like you could see like maybe hives is a sign of allergy. Anaphylaxis, which is a severe allergy, is a clinical symptom of allergy. So those are allergies, and there are many different types of allergies. There's basically like 4 different types of main allergies, and they're all a little different and they're all treated differently. A sensitivity is something that you might notice that is not necessarily testable. Sometimes it is. There are tests that are like food map tests that look for sensitivities and other kinds of reactions that are not considered allergies. Or you might see like my child, every time she eats this, even though on the skin prick test and on the allergy test, whenever my child eats XYZ, I see that there is XYZ symptom. I would call that a sensitivity. So, but I guess it doesn't really matter, but if you avoid things that are allergies or sensitivities in a young child, or don't give it to them early enough, there is a higher chance for them to have allergies to that worse when they're older. And that's why a lot of times allergists will say, introduce the high allergen foods early, introduce those peanuts early, it's true, but it's very customized because it really depends on the risk factors for your child, and that's different for every child. So to give it an umbrella term and go, you know what, dairy shouldn't be given to anybody at all because it's a high allergy food, or maybe avoid peanuts completely for everybody. I can't say that because it's a very customized approach. And that's why if you're suspecting multiple allergies, or your child is just not getting better, despite you doing everything that you could possibly do in the holistic spectrum, there might be an allergy that is being manifest as eczema that is not yet diagnosed. And it's important to know if that's the case and what kind of allergy it is, because steps can be taken to remedy that. Allergists can sometimes do things like baked egg test if it's an egg allergy, baked milk test because it's easier to digest, and maybe do immunotherapy for your child if that's appropriate.
Okay, got
Did
it.
I answer your question, Christine?
Yeah. Another thing, so let's say what do you usually advise? Like if she has a reaction like that, like red, she hasn't had any like anaphylactic or anything, but it's been like just really red. We've given her like Benadryl. The time she reacted to banana, we didn't give her anything. It just kind of went away on its own. We just put her in the shower and I gave her breast milk. But what do you normally tell people? Like, what is like the safest thing to take when they have reactions like that?
So it depends it depends on the reaction. So if there's a reaction that is concerning for anaphylaxis, meaning there could be hives, it could be problem, lips, tongue, mouth swells, that's an emergency. Hives happening, that's something that needs immediate medical care. If your child is not able to swallow because their throat might be closing, that is a severe life-threatening allergy. You need to get your child to the doctor right away. If it's just like redness on the skin, you have an option. You can use Benadryl. Benadryl is a brand name. You can use it. It's very toxic. There's a cleaner version of it called Genexa allergy. It's the diphenylhydramine is the main ingredient. If you have to rely on that medication, which will work, it's going to stop itching because of the histamine response that's happening. It's going to stop it dead in its tracks. Your child will sleep. It's going to work. If you have to rely on this a lot, there's something that you're missing. There's an exposure that's happening that is not optimal. Sometimes pediatricians will put your children on other types of antihistamines that are different generations, like second or third generation antihistamines that are not as sedating. They're not going to make your child as sleepy. They're sometimes used preventatively. Those are the Allegros and Zyrtex and Claritins, all of those. They're all antihistamines that calm the allergy response, but the response is still there. Your child is just not experiencing symptoms from the response. So having a firm understanding of what your child is sensitive or allergic to is helpful. And if you're like worried that there's a rash and it's really bad, then you have to seek direct medical like care for your child. There's really no holistic approach that works the same way that an antihistamine like diphenylhydramine, aka Benadryl, or Claritin, Zyrtec, Allegra, Singulair, all of those work, because all the natural solutions they take time, like Hista-X or His Junior or Sniflex. They all are herbal components. Their main ingredient is quercetin, but it works to kind of regulate that process over a long time, like a month, instead of being on the spot treatment. So you can't replace a quercetin product that is herbal with, like, if you need to use Zyrtec or an antihistamine, you need to use it while your child is healing.
Okay. Yeah, because what I'm doing is that I'm introducing foods, not the allergens yet.
Yeah.
But like I kind of cut off, like I hadn't done grains yet. I was kind of like limited. I mean, I know that wasn't really part of your program, but I kind of just wanted to see how she's doing since she reacted to bananas. So like now I've introduced new things, like she had lentils before. No. I introduced like asparagus, like I don't know, like different vegetables, different things. And I noticed that she reacted so far to maple syrup, molasses, which I spoke to you about, and then the lentils now. So I'm kind of continuing to keep on introducing, because obviously she needs but is it common that they have so many sensitivities, or is just she probably has a lot of allergies? Like
She probably has changing allergies because she's little. And if she's here with eczema, the likelihood is that there is some kind of allergy response as well.
okay.
Most kids with eczema do have some allergies. It's really an atopic triad. That's what we call it. Meaning the same issue that caused this overreaction with eczema is also the same thing that can cause wheezing or allergies. So
And in many of them, you hear that they grow out of their allergies.
Well, that's why what we're doing here is what we're trying to do is make sure that they grow out of it and not turn into an adult with allergies. A teenager needs to walk around with an EpiPen everywhere they go and they can't have anything. Like that's what we're doing, is making those changes. That's why we're here. So that, you know, in the past, kids used to outgrow their allergies or sensitivities. It was a childhood thing. Wheezing was a childhood thing. Eczema was a childhood thing, and it was a very rare. It wasn't 12% of kids like now. 15% of kids with allergies. Right now, there's more adults with these problems because they're growing into adults. You know, if you don't make those changes and give them the building blocks to heal, they're not going to outgrow it. It's not one path. That's the problem.
So pretty much like what we're doing now, the foundation is going to lead for them to be able to be healthier as they grow. Right?
That's the goal. Yeah, that's my wish. That's the goal.
And then you did see that in your daughter.
Oh yeah, yes. And the many kids that are direct patients in my practice, Boston Pediatrics.
Okay,
so how this happened was, like, you know, my daughter, she had other stuff too, lots of immune system problems, but also almost everyone that came to my holistic pediatric practice to become a patient was coming to me with the same 3 problems: eczema, allergies, wheezing. And I had the same conversation with them over and over again, years and years and years. And then I decided to just write everything down, and so that other people can have the knowledge without needing to see me in person, one-on-one. That's why we're here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you, Christina. Good luck. And if you have other, like, if things change between now and then our next call, just post it on the inside our group. I don't often check my private messages, and my assistants very often check my emails. So if you want me to see it, please send it in the private group so I could really respond to it. That's where I check every day for making sure that you all feel fully supported through this process and in between the calls. We have just a few more minutes. If anybody else would like to say anything else or ask anything, or anybody else?
In a similar vein to what you guys were just discussing, Hunter has a bunch of food allergies, like eggs, a lot of nuts. which we've been going to an allergist for. The last thing that we haven't really tried introducing yet is like shellfish, because the allergist said it was definitely like a higher allergen thing. She wanted to wait a little while for it. I assume since we're in the middle of the protocol that it doesn't make sense to do that right now. And we should probably wait a little while till we're in like the later weeks, but I wanted to hear your thoughts. She's not a holistic person at all.
Yeah, so in these calls and in this program, I'm not your pediatrician, so you
Yeah.
would always check with your pediatrician first. If there's no necessity to introduce like, you know, shellfish, if she says you have to introduce it now because we want to avoid allergies in the future, I would follow that. But if there's no need and she's like, just leave it alone for now, then don't rush it because you're doing healing, right? And if you kind of, just like if you introduce a cold, a sickness, there's inflammation that goes up. There's no healing that happens if you don't decompress the inflammation first. So having like a new food that is possibly an allergen is just not necessary during a healing protocol.
Yep. Okay, that's what I thought. She's not like pushing for it. I mean, she said that we should definitely introduce it, but she wasn't pushing for us to do it like immediately. So I thought it made sense to wait, but just wanted to hear your
Yeah, I think so. I would wait. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Last call. Our next call is going to be let's see. Next week, October 20th. So we'll be speaking about optimizing sleep for itchy kids. That's what that call is going to be about on October 20th. We'll start at 5:30. If you miss it, you could always watch a replay. And I hope everybody has a really great week and continue to be gentle with yourselves. And I hope this was very helpful to you. Please reach out if you have questions inside the group. Bye, everybody.
Bye, thank you.
You're so welcome. Take care.